Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to SPEAKPact. I am thrilled you are here, and we're going to have a lot of fun today with Karen Yankovich. She is, welcome to the stage, Karen. She is the CEO of Up Level Media. She's the host of a top 2% Good Girls Get Rich podcast. Really neat podcast. Check that out. And it is not easy to rank top 2% out of 5.5 million podcasts. So she's striking a chord. She's bringing the goods. So check her out. It's, as it stands right at this moment, within 2 years, SPEAKPact has reached the top 10%, which I'm super proud of, because Karen and I, we're doing this not for ourselves. We're doing this to bring our audiences value and the message that we know they need to hear. So it's really great and really satisfying to know when that is landing. All right. So Karen helps ambitious professionals turn "I've done all this amazing stuff" into visibility, influence, and income. She mixes the strategy with a little Jersey real talk to get professionals out of the shadows and into rooms where high ticket opportunities, media features, and big deal partnerships live. We're going to dive into that. She's on a mission to make wealthy the norm, not the exception. Hey, well, I'll go for that. Welcome to the stage, Karen.
Antonia, thank you so much for having me here. I'm happy to be here, and I love this conversation.
All right. So what I'd first like to dive into is you have a philosophy about PR versus just presence, right? Presence on LinkedIn and other places. Right. Can you dive into that a little bit for me? I think if you ask 10 people what PR is, you're going to get 10 very different ansers. So if you'll dive into the differences.
They're probably all correct, right? They're probably all correct. Right. Yeah. You know, we can and should create our presence, right? Can I take a step back first and talk about why I think it's important? You know, I focus a lot on LinkedIn strategies, and as you mentioned in my bio, I really think that we need to be focusing on higher ticket opportunities. There's big opportunities there for us. That's my focus. I know there's other ways of creating wealth, but that's my focus. And when you have created a credibility plan, right? And that's what PR is. That helps you be seen as credible. It helps you land those bigger contracts. So that's the reason I weave PR into all the things that I do, because I think that when we're talking to people about trying to land a contract, that's a pretty high ticket contract. And we've done all the work on our own platforms, and we've done all the work on our bios, and we know we're qualified for this, but we have absolutely no credibility. It's a lot harder to get that yes, right? So when we have an intentional PR plan, it helps give us credibility. So there's a couple different types of PR, right? I think that your social media is PR. You and I, Antoniette, as podcast hosts, are the media, right? Like, so we don't always think of ourselves like this, and we don't always think of our social media as publicity, but it is publicity for us. The difference, though, is when you are featured on other people's platforms, it's earned media as opposed to created media, right? So here, if somebody came across my Facebook page or my LinkedIn profile, hopefully they would feel that I'm worthy of their time, right? Or at least to get started. But really, it's all about what I've put out there. But if this is the first time they're being introduced to me, I get to borrow your credibility, right? Because Antoniette brought me to this this screen, right? To their screen. So that's kind of the difference. I think they're both important, but we definitely want to have an earned media strategy as well as a owned media strategy.
So there's earned, there's owned, and there's bought, right? Paid
Exactly.
media.
Yep. And paid is a great way to go when you've got $10,000 or $20,000 a month to put towards that,
Right.
right? I like to sit in the middle, like helping people make enough money that at the point where they can hire a publicist is fantastic, right? But until we get there, there's a lot we can do on our own.
So, like you said, I would not have brought you onto my show, put you in front of my audience. We've put years into this unless I trusted you. I trusted that you were going to bring some value.
Right.
So right away, my audience trusts me, so they're going to trust you. And vice
Exactly.
versa. When somebody's on your show, you vet
Mhm.
them. You're not going to bring just anybody onto your show. Your audience is far too priceless to you for that. Even though most podcasts don't make a lot of money, it's often a passion project and also a way to build your authority. So we're not going to risk that if we don't believe in you. So instantly you get that third party verification, you get that
Right.
know, like, and trust factor because they get to hear you and experience you. You know what's sad to me, Karen, is I have speakers who absolutely they feel like being on a podcast is a waste of time. And it is if you're on the wrong podcast in front of the wrong
Well,
audience.
I would agree with that ish.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that I want you to be intentional about your time. I absolutely want you to be intentional. We're busy. We don't need to be wasting our time on podcasts that don't bring us any value. And if somebody throws your name in a search bar to see what comes up about you and 20 pages come up, that's credibility too, right? So
Right.
I don't want you to pitch yourself to podcasts that are of no value to you. But again, we're building a credibility platform here. So sometimes we don't know, and it's okay if we do it and then find out, yeah, I'm not really sure why I did that one, but at least it'll come up in the searches.
So that goes right back to what you said about intentional PR. So let's talk about that a bit. So I think this can work even with paid ads. There are people who've said, I paid for, put out $20,000 in ads and it didn't work. It didn't work for me. And I think that has a lot to do with that planned intentionality. So can PR become a full-time job? How do you do it effectively and intentionally versus just, I'm going to try to be everywhere for everyone just to see what lands?
Yeah. Well, I don't consider myself like a business strategist as much as a marketing strategist. And part of a marketing strategy for people in my world is, let's just use podcasts as an example. How many podcasts do I want to be on a month? Do I know the exact formula? If I'm on 3 podcasts, it will bring me 2.5 clients and that will, I don't. There is no exact formula, but I do know that when somebody comes to me and it's a big opportunity, at least 50%, if not more percent of the time, they say, oh, I saw Karen featured in a magazine. And I wanted to work with her. The biggest opportunities I get often come to me from publicity that I've done. And so you might not be able to track the effectiveness of each and every interview that you do. In fact, you're not going to be able to track the effectiveness of each and every interview that you do. There are times you can track it and that's amazing, but if you try to, you'll drive yourself kind of crazy, right? I know that there's an overarching equation that is, if I'm on, you pick the number, this many podcast interviews a month or a week or a year or whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. It's going to grow my business by this much. And then we pick what that number is and we reverse engineer a strategy to help make that happen. And I think that is more important, knowing that it will happen, than trying to spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what that formula is.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. So let's talk about when you talk about, let's say, an intentional PR plan, should you narrow down where you're going to be seen? Meaning, like, I can be on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and paying for ads, and you're doing all of being on podcasts, and I get flipping worn out, right? Where we intentionally put our most energy is in LinkedIn, and then our LinkedIn content can be put in other places, but that's not where my focus is going to be. Same with the podcast, right? I'm very intentional about the podcasts that I'm on, just as intentional as the guests I bring onto mine. But then I've got so much great content to work with to put in other places. So I think there's a way to really kind of consolidate energies as well. Can you speak a little bit to that? Like who should pick Instagram over LinkedIn, or should you? Like how does all that
Yeah,
work?
it's really interesting. I've been spending a lot of time lately on Threads. So LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time, but I'm really enjoying Threads. Threads has just become a place that I like to hang out, which it's been a long time since there's been a social media platform that I like to hang out. And there was a post there this morning by a woman. I live in Northern New Jersey, and she's from Northern New Jersey. And she posted something about she's creating this women's event, and she's looking for sponsors, and she's hitting a brick wall. And here's her, and she, anybody have any advice for her? And so she had a link in it to her event. She had a link, and then in that link there was a link to her media kit. So I poked around a little bit, and she had all of those places, right? Instagram, Threads, like blah 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 blah. No sign of LinkedIn anywhere. So I jumped into the conversation, and I said, we don't know each other, but I'm also from Northern New Jersey, and I also know, by the way, like side note, I know I've got credibility here, right? Like if she chooses to check me out, then I'm going to check out because I've worked intentionally to do that, which is what we're talking about here, right? So I said, if I'd be spending a little bit more time on LinkedIn, I said, I just went through all your stuff and I don't really see even any mention of LinkedIn. Are you spending any time there? Because that's where I'd be building relationships for sponsors and for media partners and things like that. And her response to me was, yeah, I tried that. Nobody responds. Oh, and at the end of it, I said, let me know if you want to have a quick chat. I'm happy to help you. Her response was, yeah, no, I tried that. It doesn't work. Like, okay, I tried. Do you know what I mean? So we get caught up in I'm going to call it hysteria of social media sometimes. And we think that it's all the places. You can be micro targeted and spend one tenth the amount of time that you spend on all those other platforms on LinkedIn and have better results. But it's so hard to get past the noise that says, well, this person's on Instagram and this person's here and this person's there. So, I think that I'm not going to say there's not a place for a strategy on those other places. They're not my area of expertise. So it's hard. I don't really want to be saying don't do them. I do them, but like I said, I use Threads more for conversations and for meeting people, but I have had some great conversations there and I have got some business there. And we started to post more, LinkedIn tips and hot takes and things like that there. But none of that stuff happens in my world or anybody's world that comes to me for strategy before the LinkedIn work, before the outreach to the people. Because, if you're sitting here telling me, if you're listening to this and you're like, my strategy for the next 12 months is I want to sell a crap ton of low ticket products, I'm not the person for you to listen to. That's just not my area of expertise. There's plenty of people making millions of dollars doing that. So I know that there's a strategy for that. My strategy is that sounds exhausting to me. All those sales pages and upsell pages and thank you pages and landing pages just to sell something for $27 is exhausting. I'd rather meet some people, build some relationships, and land bigger ticket contracts. And then, by the way, when you're doing that, you can then pay people to create your low ticket product funnels, right? When you're bringing in the bigger money. So I think that it really depends on what you're looking to do. I think if you're looking to sell, like I use the example of a pen, right? If you want to sell pens, I am never going to tell you don't sell pens. If you make the best pens in the world, sell pens. But you're going to sell one pen at a time on Instagram. You're going to look for a distributor that wants to buy 100,000 of them on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And it's the
Great
same
example.
problem, right? So that's, I think, the difference between the platforms. I'm not saying don't use those other platforms. I know they work. I know there's people making a lot of money at them. It's just not my area of expertise. I want you to find a distributor that wants 100,000 of your pens. When you get a couple of them, then you can hire somebody to create all that low ticket stuff for you.
Such a perfect analogy. I've not heard it said that way. And that hits the nail on the head. That is the difference. That's one of the reasons why.
And one more thing, and to tie it back to what we talked about, if somebody comes across you and decides they want to talk to you about your 100,000 pen order, it's going to be a lot easier for you to sign that contract if you've built some credibility around being an expert at pens versus being like they put your name in a Google search and nothing comes up. Right? It doesn't mean you're not good at what you do, but we're not giving them anything to help them to a yes. And the PR that we're talking about here, the earned PR, helps them to a yes when you find those bigger ticket opportunities.
And people like to work with people.
Right.
They don't necessarily like to work with companies. They
Mhm.
like to work with people, even if it's a person in a company that they feel like they like and they trust. So let's talk about that for a moment. What's the difference between building your personal brand, personal professional brand, versus building your company brand? Because I know I have a company page on LinkedIn and there's a good bit of followers there, but there's not a lot of interaction. Whereas on my personal LinkedIn page, there's tons of interaction. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I LinkedIn first and foremost is a place to network human to human, right? And it is, I will tell you that nobody, not anybody on my team, nobody has my LinkedIn login but me. If I'm talking to you on LinkedIn, it's me. Okay. And I mean, there's a couple reasons I do that, not the least of which is that LinkedIn is shutting people down right and left for sharing their logins. You logged in New Jersey at 2 o'clock and then in the Philippines at 3 o'clock. Obviously, you're not the same person, right? So they're shutting people down for that. And the last thing I need to be doing is teaching a strategy around this that's getting my clients' profiles shut down, right? But at the same time, it is networking, right? And it doesn't have to be done on, in fact, it shouldn't be done on a massive level. It should be done on a micro targeted level, a couple people each week that you think can move the needle in your business to take you to the bigger opportunities. The company page is more of a brochure to support that.
Mm-hmm.
There's reasons to have a company page. Like I have a company page and mine is very similar to yours. My company page has, a couple hundred followers. My personal profile has like 20,000, right? And so where do you think I'm putting all my efforts, right? And it's common, right? There are some company pages that are more that are bigger than mine, but mostly they're bigger companies like Pepsi or colleges or things like that. So there's a good reason to have company pages. I think it's important, but let's talk about the branding, okay? If you're a small company and you have 10 employees, right? And this applies to big and small, but let's just stick with that for now. Your biggest bang for your buck on LinkedIn is going to be having those individual employees doing outreach on LinkedIn to their own personal networks, right? We know this. Antonia, we've known this. Your net worth is your equal of your network. You're the sum of the 5 people you know. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Like we know this. We don't always pay attention to it, but we know this. We've known this forever, and it's still a fact, right? However, if you're a company that invests in the personal brands of those 10 people, and they're all associated with your business page, you've immediately upgraded your business brand because everyone that works for you looks like a rock star, right? So the personal brands are so important to the business brand where LinkedIn is concerned. Now, I mean, logos and colors and all that other stuff about branding in the companies, no, I don't, it's not all that important on the LinkedIn. But the business page, where the business page brings a lot of value to small business owners and larger business owners, but is the connection from the employee, like employee to employee connections. I use business pages a lot to find people that work for companies. Like if I had met with that woman in New Jersey that was creating, I'd be like, we're going to go into the company pages of the corporations you want to be sponsors, and we're going to find the exact right people within the company page that you want to do outreach to. Right. And then we're going to see who's active on LinkedIn. So there's a huge value to having a company page on LinkedIn, but the value, the money and the opportunities and the contracts come from the human to human piece of it, from the personal brands.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well spoken. Okay. You've mentioned this a couple of times, and I'm making my assumption, but I'd like to just hear how you define this. So what is a low ticket offer to you, kind of the range and the level of service that might bring, the level of transformation versus a high ticket offer? And then let's talk about why that's important for a corporate trainer or a speaker.
Yeah. So much has changed in the last few years. And I think the pandemic probably had a lot to do with it. Everything got really noisy. So I don't know that I really want to throw dollar numbers out because it's really it's a perception. But I do know that in my company, we've created more low ticket offers in the last year than we ever have before, because I think people need to, well, I'm not even gonna say need to. I think if somebody's watching this right now and they're like, wow, I'm really interested in what Karen has to say, I'm not sure they're going to just quickly whip out their checkbook and write me a $10,000 check, but they might buy a $50 something to see what they think about the way that I work with people. I think that's becoming more important now than it was before. So depending on, your strategies as a speaker, you may or may not need those low ticket offers, right? But I do think that and I really discovered that one, not discovered it, but I came to the realization one day. I came across somebody that I didn't know before. Somebody said, you really should follow this person. So I followed them, and I found myself buying like a couple of their $20, $30 things to get to know them better. And I was like, wow, I don't give people that same opportunity. Like I don't offer that to people. And it made me think to change my strategies a little bit, because I do think the world we live in now, that's more important than it's been before, because there's so many people making so much noise. We just don't know who's credible or not. So people might need to just invest a little bit to check you out now, where maybe 5 years ago they might not have needed to do that. So to me, that's more important than the actual dollar amount, is the kind of the energy behind the lower ticket and the higher ticket offers. But I do think too, like we have to, let's talk about the higher ticket offers, because that's where the juice is, right? That's what I love. I think that whatever your number is, whether it's 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, I want you to be able to say that number, like you say, please pass the salt, and know that if you're in the investment in whatever you're offering is $10,000 or $100,000, it is valued, it is worth 10 times that. And really creating products with that generic metric in mind, right? So people go to like, well, $10,000 to speak at an event where she's going to be there for an hour. Like, that's crazy. Well, no, I mean, we all know how many hours go into all the work that has to happen to be standing on a stage for an hour for $10,000 or $25,000 or $50,000 speaking event or workshop or whatever, right? So it's not that, but putting all of that aside, it's really about the value on the other side of that. And I remember talking to one of my clients one time, and she wanted to have more corporate clients, and she was going to be doing workshops and things like that for corporations. And she came to our session and she said, I've got this number in mind and I'm thinking it's $5,000, but I know you're going to want it to be $10,000. So let's just talk about it as if it's $10,000. So we did, and we created this package that she could offer. That was a $10,000 corporate package. And then when we had about a half an hour left, I said to her, okay, what if it was $20,000? And she said, well, then I could do individual assessments on the people on the team. I could go out to their site once a month for a couple of months. She started rattling off all of these other amazing things that were of such huge value to the customer. She wasn't just doubling her fee and walking home with another $10,000 in her pocket. She found a way instantly to bring a huge amount of additional value to the customer for that additional investment. And that's the mindset that we need to be in if we want to be really successful at having high ticket offers. Does that make sense?
It does. And there are in the business climate these days, people don't want to mess around because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of information. They want to cut a check for speed, get it right the first go.
Exactly.
So having
100%.
having only a low ticket offer and not that high ticket offering places you in a category of a novice or an extra versus that elite level support that you really can bring to the table. I really love the way that you put that. But also there is value in having a taster tester, right? In a low ticket offer. So what would that be? What would be a non-throwaway LTO? Something that can give them a true experience of you, but your time, and I know my time, is not a low ticket offer. So how do you do that?
So what we did, and I can speak to what we did and what's working really well for us. We had a program called She's Linked Up that I ran for years, and it was $9,000, and it was a program, and they got a lot of hands-on, and it was kind of like some of it we did for them, most of it we did with them, and a lot of it they did themselves. We didn't do any outreach on LinkedIn or anything like that for them. And it worked well for a lot of years until it didn't. Right. And then we were like, what's happening? We shifted to a model where we completely stripped all the support out of that program, put it in a membership. It's called the Visibility Salon. You guys can check it out at visibilitysalon.com. It's a $50 a month membership. I did a full 2-hour PR training in there this morning, me personally. So I show up in there for a couple hours a month. They get me personally, but I also have like my copywriter goes in and does a call once a month, and my admin comes in and does strategy, does like tech calls a couple times a month and accountability calls. So we've created a low ticket membership for some of that. And then our higher ticket stuff is very hands-on, where we've got a visibility package where we'll create all of your assets for you and then help you create a PR plan for you and then kind of send you on your way. Because we don't have an agency. We're not doing the pitching for you, but it's a month-long, like intensive to just get everything ready for you and then put you in the out there to kind of do the work yourself. We have a 6-month mastermind where the intention in that 6 months is to build your high ticket process and to bring in an additional 6 figures in 6 months. And then once you know how to do that, you can do it again on your own, right? So we've recreated what we're doing to be much more either done for you or high results based, higher ticket things. And then we're just still giving so much value in our lower ticket offers. I mean, what I gave my people this morning in the Visibility Salon and the training that I did was, we had it in our higher end mastermind a year ago where they were paying me, $1,000, $2,000 a month. And that's where they got that training. Now they get it for $50 a month. Right. But to me, there's 2 sides to it. To me, I feel like I give my podcast and we're doing 2 a week now. We give my podcast every week to people. And that's kind of how I support people that can't afford to invest at a higher level. But I just really felt called to serve people that weren't ready to invest at a higher level. And I'm hoping that some of those people will shake enough out of the lower ticket program that they can then start to invest at that higher level.
Well, there's kind of a whole beauty to that thought process or funnel, if you want to call it that. So let's say to the speakers out there, I'm if you listen to the show at all, you know that I am not into one-shot wonders, right? I'm not into a talk is the event. The talk should be the first step in a journey. So what's neat about what you're talking about, whether it's $50 or really, I think that could go up to $350, whatever.
Oh yeah, and it will. But we just started it like 6 months ago, and we're comfortable where it is right now.
You got to shake out right, totally.
Comfortable where it is right now, and as long as I'm comfortable there and it's working, I'm happy to keep it there for now.
So let's say you get an engagement and you're paid $15,000 to do the 60-minute talk. And you're allowed to give a free gift afterwards. Easy, very valuable free gift could be 1-month membership, complimentary to this audience.
Absolutely.
And they get to experience that. And then, wow, of course they want to keep going on. And they join your membership. And then, wow, I see some real possibility here. This is my thoughts, is low ticket offers should show the possibility, should show what's possible. Yes. And talk a little bit about strategy. But if you really want to get the strategy done, launch on the right trajectory and get to where you're going, then that's the next level. So I'm going to be interested to hear back from you to see how that all goes.
Well, and that's exactly when I did this training this morning. I dumped so much stuff on them, but they're for $50 a month. They've got to do it now. Like and we're giving them templates and things like that. But it's in their lap. But at the end, I said, and we can do this for you if you want. Mm-hmm. We've got our product where we can do this 30-day jumpstart, this 30-day intensive. We can have it done by, the beginning of June, if you'd like. Right. So, and that goes in our recording and that's there. And that's, I guess it's funnel-y, right? It's funnel-ish, but I do think that it feels good right now for us and it's working. So we're going to continue to do it as it does. But you're right. Our intention is not to get, our intention. You started out this by telling in my bio, I want there to be more wealthy people in this world because I think people with money have more choices and have more control of their destiny. And we're living in a world right now where that's kind of up in the air, right? So the more people that are secure financially, the better choices they have to make when things go a little crazy in their world. So that happens, so this is how I help I feel like this is what I can do in this crazy time
Well,
that we
and
live
to add to that, Karen, the more good you do, the more good you get to do, right? The
in. Right.
better you do,
Exactly.
the more
Exactly.
ability you
Right.
have to give.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's so beautiful to be living a life where if something happens and you're like, I want to donate to that, you just donate to it,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to say or buy dinner tomorrow night, right? So it is how there's a ripple effect to it, and so thankfully it's working financially because it definitely serves me emotionally as well.
Love that. Well, this is a good time in the show because I'm sure there are plenty of SpeakPact audience members who are interested in who is Karen Yankovich and how do we find her. So, Karen, how do you like to be found?
Yeah. Well, my podcast is a great way to get to know me better. Good Girls Get Rich. And I mentioned earlier that we're doing 2 shows a week. We did a little bit of strategizing around the podcast for 2026. And the solo shows were really doing well. But I found myself, I really want to do the interviews. So now we release a solo show every Monday, I think it is. And we're doing the interview show kind of like this, live on LinkedIn every week.
You
So every
are.
Wednesday
Woohoo.
at noon Eastern, come join me live because I feel like sometimes there's people listening to this conversation and they may have a question and they want to jump in. Now you can. So if you are interested in doing that, check us out on our live show, which also goes on the podcast feed eventually, like in about 10 days later, it goes on the podcast feed and it goes out live on Wednesdays. And then the following
So, is
Friday
it
it goes out
live to LinkedIn, YouTube?
live to
Where?
LinkedIn and to my Facebook page. We don't have it
Okay.
to all the places, just to LinkedIn. And then we've only done 3 episodes so far. This is brand new. But of the live show, we've done a
Sure.
million guest episodes. I think I have like 365 or 68 episodes out. So we've
Wow.
been doing the
Well,
podcast for a long
how old is
time.
your show? Or when?
I think it's about 10 years old. I should know the answer to that. I don't
That's
know the
okay.
answer to that. I think it's
That's
about
okay.
maybe 8 years old or 9 years old. I just decided one day that I was tired of writing. I'm not as much a writer as I am a talker. So I just decided I didn't want to do blogs anymore and started the podcast. And I would love to tell you we've been consistently every week since then, but we haven't. There's been definitely blocks of time where we haven't done it. We have been consistently for the last couple of years. And
Well,
that
you've
I think
broken all
helped me
kinds
get to
of
2%.
records, honestly,
Yeah.
Karen, because most podcasters fizzle out at year 2, or what
Mhm.
do they say, episode 10?
Right.
Like they
Right.
fizzle out. Year 2, even if they're like super committed and they're going and they're going, because it is
Right.
a huge commitment and you
It
don't
is.
always see the ROI. My ROI is like what you said, is this is my way to give to
Mhm.
those who either aren't ready or can't
Right.
invest in our help at this point.
Right. Right. So check me out at the podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I mean, that's always the best way to reach me. Tell me that you heard us here. Even better, repost the LinkedIn if you're watching this live on LinkedIn, or share the link to the podcast if you're listening to this on your podcast feed. Tag me, tag Antoniette, and we'll share it with our audiences. And this is how we extend that ripple effect, right? Tell
Yes.
us what you loved about this episode. And share that with your network. I would love that, and I'm sure Antoniette would as well. Those are the best ways to connect with me. And once you're on my LinkedIn profile, it's hard not to find other ways to find what I do.
Yeah, and that everything Karen just said, though, when you give, you get. So definitely do that. So Karen is Karen, Karen, and then Yankovich, for those who are just listening in, is Yankovich, Yankovich, exactly how it sounds. Of course, all of the links will be linked into the show notes, but we get notes from people who say that we are their daily workout listen or their daily walk listen.
Yeah,
So
love
some are
that.
just hearing us and not seeing the video. All right. So Karen, what else can you tell a speaker specifically who is a accomplished subject matter expert? Maybe they've been building a brand for a company, but now they're ready to reinvent themselves and they really want to make their own personal brand and make speaking and maybe corporate training a major part of their revenue model, and possibly kind of start stepping back from the day to day?
Yeah, this is a good topic. First of all, you have to remember that you're not starting from scratch, you're starting with experience. So create your personal brand. And that's specifically, I'm talking about your LinkedIn profile from that place. It's not your resume. Your resume is all about who you used to be. Your LinkedIn profile should be positioning you for the career you're stepping into, kind of like dressing for the job you want, right? So talk about those things. Don't make stuff up that isn't true. But I am sure that there's plenty of accomplishments you have in your life that you can pull from to create a brand that positions you as if you're peers with the people that have been doing this for 50 years, and create it from that perspective. But then network. I interviewed somebody one time for my podcast who wanted to speak at big corporate events, and he was so strategic about it. He would like say, in 2 years, I want to speak at, AT&T or whatever, right? At their corporate event. So 2 years earlier, he'd start to connect with all of the event planners and he'd see he'd keep an eye on the events that they run, and he'd start to connect with them, and he'd engage with those events. Often there's an event hashtag, right? He'd use it. He'd watch videos if they were available publicly. He would start to infiltrate, right, that world but build true relationships. So when the time came for him to pitch himself for an event, he was not a stranger. He was already well known to them. And if he said things like, I have been talking about you guys for 2 years, they can look at his LinkedIn profile and it was true, right? So, I mean, that's the long game. There's a great short game as well, but don't overlook the long game, right? Like, start to connect with people. I had a client one time who was speaking at an event, and as I was helping her create her strategy for that, I was like, wow, I need to speak at this event. And, so I connected with the event coordinator, like the speaker coordinator, and I just connected with her on LinkedIn. And I reached out to her at one point and I said, listen, they have events, multiple locations, like scattered around the country every year. And I was like, listen, I'm right outside of New York City. Let me know if I can help you with your New York event. And she's like, oh, we just booked all the speakers for that event, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all right, no worries. This was after I connected with her like 6 months before. A couple of days later, she reached back out and said, you know what? I think I could put you on a panel. I'm like, okay. Do you know what I mean? And she put me on a panel at this huge event, right? But it came from me establishing relationships. And, as a podcast host myself, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, I get a ton of cold pitches, and I very rarely even look at them because I don't know you. But if you are listening to this episode and you share it and you tag me and say, Karen, you guys were talking about this, I have a point of view about that one particular thing. Here's what I think about that. Connect with me, share it, provide me value, and then a couple of weeks later or a month later or whatever, say, I have an idea for your podcast. What do you think about jumping on this? You're going to get a lot more attention from me than the other way around. So take that same strategy across your speaking career. It is, again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You're the sum of the people you surround yourself with. Start connecting with the people that are going to bring value to your speaking career. If you're speaking at an event, connect with all the other speakers. Write recommendations for the hosts of the event. Invite people to the event so that when they show up, they say, Karen Yankovich invited me here. That provides such value to the event coordinators. Like, before the event, connect with the other speakers and say, listen, I'm speaking on Tuesday, but I see you're speaking on Wednesday. I don't want to miss your talk. Because guess what? If that speaker is speaking at that event, maybe there's other events that speakers has spoken at before or will speak at in the future that they can introduce you to, right? So network, and don't go wide, go deep into every event that you are a part of. And that right there, and again, I'm going to bring it back to our initial topic. If your LinkedIn profile is stellar and you've got credibility, you've been interviewed on podcasts or you've done some work on the earned publicity, it's going to be a lot easier. When you connect with that speaker that's speaking on Wednesday and you're on Tuesday, and they see who you are, they're going to be like, wow, she's a rock star. I totally want to get to know her when we get to this event, right? So there's so much work you can do before the event, during the event, and after the event for each individual event that you speak at that can help you land future speaking engagements.
Becomes a journey.
That there is like where this starts to become magnetic.
Oh, love, love, love. There's so much there. All right. So generosity pays. You don't give to get. it's a law. It's just the law of reciprocity. It's just what is. The more generous you are, the more doors open up to you. When you are valuable and
Right.
just generously give of some of that value,
Right.
people will want more. It's
Right.
just how it works. And I so often see people hold tightly to their chest, right? All their aces or what have you. And they don't realize they're actually harming themselves.
Right. Right. And the more generous you are, even with things like LinkedIn recommendations, the better. Because, and by the way, it's okay to ask for them too. Like after the event, it's okay for you to reach out to the speaker coordinator and say, I'd love some feedback. Tell me what, like, did you get any feedback on my talk? And then that can maybe naturally go into, assuming it was all good, it would really be helpful to me if are you up for leaving me a LinkedIn recommendation? And maybe even leave them one. If you look at my LinkedIn recommendations, you'll see that I've written some for event coordinators,
Mm.
and like it's just such a pleasure to speak at Mary's events because she just makes the event run smoothly every time, right? And it's true. And again, it's just about being generous and providing value, and all of that multiplies.
Oh, so good. That's an area I have not paid much attention to in LinkedIn is the recommendations. We do the LinkedIn newsletter, so we give in that way. We post 3 or 4 times a week, so we give a lot. But I've not really.
I could
I'm
do
gonna
more
look
as
deeper
well.
at
I
that.
could do more. As those words were coming out of my mouth, I'm like, I really want to get to a ratio where I've given more than I've gotten, and I
Mm.
haven't gotten there yet. And that obviously would be easy for me to do, but I haven't done it. So,
Well, it says a
uh,
lot about people really being excited
yeah,
to
I
tell
suppose.
how
I
much
suppose.
they enjoy working with you.
Right. True. I guess
All
that's
right,
true.
Karen, you know that my final ask of the Speak Pact show is that you leave the Speak Pact audience with an actionable item, with something they can put into practice today. It's not complex, that will make a difference in their public relations and in their brand, and in being visible. So, what would that challenge be that you would give to the Speak Pact audience?
I would say, and this is could be PR oriented, but I want you to go into your current existing LinkedIn network and find 5 people to reach out to this week that you've already connected to. So many people are always looking for the next connection, the next connection, the next connection. But again, I want you to go deeper. I bet there are 5 people. Maybe you spoke at a conference with them before, and it's a speaker, another speaker that's in your industry, and just say, wow, Mary, can you believe it's been 5 years since we were in, Nashville at that conference? Like, I would love to catch up. What's happening? Just do that times 5 people in a week. By the way, if you do this every week, your business is going to start exploding, but just 5 people and not 10 because you won't follow up. Like, I
Mhm.
want you to make it tiny. 5 people. Reach into your existing network and reach out to 5 people that might be able to shake the needle or move the needle for you, whatever it is you're looking to do in the next couple of months.
I love that. Somebody just did that to me just yesterday. It's somebody out of the blue I hadn't heard from and loved her. And
Great.
earlier on, like in 2023, we were just more in each other's circle. And then, just kind of gradually, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so glad you reached out. And it just kind of reopened that door. That's something anybody can do. And that's super
Exactly.
powerful. Can
And
I
so
add?
many
I'm going
people
to
say
add.
to me, by the way,
Yeah.
let me give one more point on this.
Yeah.
If I say that and you're thinking, oh, there isn't anybody in my network, I already know who everybody there, there's nothing there. I am going to call you on that and say, do it anyway. Because I've done this with my clients who have said that to me. And they're like, wait, I didn't know she left AT&T and now works for this company. Like, you do it anyway. I promise you, you're going to find some good stuff.
Oh, good. Okay. So take that challenge. And then I'm going to add a little
Yeah.
addition, if it optional addition. Grab 5 people, maybe you don't really know, but you are connected to in LinkedIn, and just do a gratuitous comment on one of their latest posts. Just
Yep.
don't ask for anything. Be generous, add an insight, let them know that you see them, and just contribute to 5 different people's posts every single day. What that'd take at 4 minutes, 5 minutes. But what that does, number one, again, law of reciprocity. It helps their algorithms, so it helps them be seen more. It helps you be seen more because now your comment is shown to pretty much all of their people that get the impression of that particular post. And it puts you on their radar, similar to what you were saying, Karen, about sharing. Sharing is caring, about sharing. So those are two things you can be doing in LinkedIn, but to do Karen's first. And if you have time, do mine. But let's say you set 10 minutes aside every day to do those just 10 touch points. And I'm with you, Karen. I betcha the needle moves with regards to introductions, interest in what you're offering, followers, all those things.
And Antoinette, if somebody said to me, one thing, Karen, like they nail me to the wall and say, one thing I should be doing on LinkedIn, I would have told them what you just said. The most important thing you can do on LinkedIn is exactly what Antoinette just described to you, because that's more important than posting on your own. It is so valuable. So I love that we're in sync on that. It's so valuable. It's all about just building relationships and, it's more fun.
Well, this has been an insight-filled show. Thank you, Karen. You brought it. You bring it to your own show. Definitely check out Karen's show. Say the name again one more time.
It's Good Girls Get Rich. And then
Good Girls Get Rich.
Good Girls Get Rich, the Conversations. And that's the live show.
She's on all the majors, so check her out. And we want you to go out there and make the biggest impact with the power of your voice. That is possible. And it's different for everybody. So keep tuning in, keep challenging yourself. Don't let anything stop you, because there are people lying awake at night praying for the solutions you bring, or that little bit of inspiration or point of view that you can bring to the table that nobody else can hit them just in that way. So go out there and do that. Ciao, ciao for now. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply #SpeakPact.